这全部做的你没想做的么？那么全部人家的，把个到人家都是么多。东北对这将来给上早上的城市我这里讲公司，叫我对这上头也拉们，因为本座上老所让的，公鸡多半跑了新界都上
The
山
answer
下
past
的，
profound and wonderful Dharma is difficulty encountering billions of aeons. I now see it here to receive and uphold it, about to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings, thus generate the supreme bodhicitta.
首先念如意宝藏论的这个寄送的传承啊。让正方是你懂了解的，让的平民家乡对吧？对，让当人前就像把每天中间学入人群热爱的，玩玩过的呢，轻松能被见呢，人群只那还是那么真就陪着日日在梦参与的看早些，黄色学当人家把啦。我这家当你是在人家把我人了那都是这个还是个呢。타이 제츠르 라바 남제 양 따나 등네 혹스 녀셔네도 조그르는데 빔 삼나 네발레 샤나 상타 나츠 겐무츠 렌친 잔다 존상 구당 겐나 하이 보모 가위 시바고 소나 쯤저 지시 겐무츠 예른게 체나 제당 페르와테 렌친 존다 고차 짜암종 ནབ་ནན རེསར ཛང ཟོང་པོ ནེ ནացོ ལོང་ཤུན ཇིམꯔམ ཇོང་ཝ་གོ ཤང་ན ག་ཚར ལྷ་ཡི བུ་མོ གང གར་ཟོང ཇིམ་པར ཏོང གི ཤང དང ཅི ལོང་ཤུ དག ག་བ ལྷག་པར འཕེར་བ ཡིན དེ དག ཆ ཇང ཉི བར ངབ་ཅར དེ ཡིབ་ལག སེར་གི ར་བ ཧོག་ཚ་ད ཅི རན་ཅན ཅོག ག ནིམ ཛིབེར གན ནང ག ژرنم سرگی فیما داره رنچن کیتر زنو چیکان چیفی کان میتو پامپون ونوا کرفیت جان چارنم شرور خودت نیشه نا سازج زنبور نامجه رنبا جنر ناتو زمجرن ریبا گاورتی رنچن سازج جونشان چمسو گن چاتن کوپا چارون راوا گو شانه جونکرم çok deyip şanışırına yondi sartorun pansı خودت gyar çavar ringazig chukjir yargala khutsil ngabge khutsil ngabchig chipchi rabdir ge nyambu tsemo diktir rab chi ngabchimzi ngabchi gyanna te god teni de goti shognam sarvar shi chipsun jimbur zon rzu shu khutsil gyar rzu shu mayin ngabchi kapi chong 나르모 능지 돌립 지바테 체전 호츠 납지 람전라 원부 처지 메토고 차르바페 하르놈 가야티 다와 지르니 소 타나 드그니 호츠 셰탄 지 손읍 추선 하인 던사테 체장 섬겸 타쿠르 급갸듬 구이나 런친 칸츠 고은버와 종즈 잠기 살라 마르中哈那么人格这等下啦，年吧中其实注意，内有多，好，下面我们讲如意宝藏。
Let us continue with the wish fulfilling treasury.
时间可能稍微长一点啊。
Today our class may be a little bit longer than usual. We're currently on the third chapter of Wish Fulfilling Treasury. We're talking about the inanimate world. Previously, we've already covered the inanimate world of the higher realms and lower realms. We've already completely studied the lower realm. Now we're on the part where it talks about the higher realms, especially the human realm and then the celestial realm. We've already covered on the human realm, the 7 continents. In terms of the Chamara, which is one of the 2 continents of Jambudvipa, the Chamara continent, that is where Pamasambhava lives. That's where the copper-colored mountain is. Many of the wise ones would consider so. We've already talked about the lower realms, so we're currently studying the celestial realm. In terms of the celestial realm, there's the desire heavens and then the form heavens. In terms of the formless and form heavens, we will cover it later. There are the 6 heavens of desire heavens, including Trishrimsha's heaven, the heavens for the 4 heavenly kings, and Tushita heavens, and so on. So all together there are 6. Out of the 6 desire heavens, part of them they rely on ground, and part of them they abide in space. The ones that relies on ground, we've already covered that, which is the 4 heavenly kings. Palace, and then we've talked about the 4 heavenly kings and their retinues, as well as the sun palace and the moon palace. Currently, we're studying the Trishrimsha's heaven. Only the 4 heavenly kings' heaven and the Trishrimsha's heaven abide on space, abide on ground, and the other heavens all abide in space. Let's look at the Trishrimsha's heaven. According to the textual outline, it says that to separately explain the differences of merit. We've already talked about the brief explanation of Trishrimsha heavens. In terms of the difference of merit, there are the 2 different aspects. One is brief explanation, and the other one is extensive explanation. The extensive has 5 aspects. The first one talks about the Supreme Victory Palace and the gardens within and outside. Also, the supreme wish-fulfilling trees and the Sudashana city. So these are the 5 aspects in the extensive explanation. Yesterday, we also talked about the height and area and the 999 gates of Supreme Victory Palace and Sudashana city. Guarding each of the gates, there are 500 guardians. Let's continue to look at the Trishrimsha's city, the city Sudashana. Now let us continue. On one hand, when we're studying the celestial realms, many of you probably feel like it doesn't have anything to do with me, especially when it comes to working with my afflictions. It is not actual practice, so it's not very close to our life. Therefore, many of you probably don't have that much interest. But on the other hand, if we look at it from the other hand, as a Buddhist, if we don't even know the very basics of Buddhist cosmology, Buddhist philosophy, we should feel quite embarrassed about ourselves. So we should rather generate a sense of curiosity and a sense of joy when we study such a supreme teaching from Longchenpa. We should listen with a joyful mind and a pure aspiration. While listening to it, if we were to have great faith, then through the words that's composed by Venerable Longchenpa, we would be able to touring around in the 3 realms. We can take tours in the celestial realm, we can take tours to the Trishrimsha's heaven and the palaces of the 4 heavenly kings. Previously, we've already traveled around the 4 great continents of the 4 heavenly kings. From today onwards, we're going to take a tour in the Treasury heaven. We'll probably take a day and a half to travel around Treasury heaven because Treasury heaven is rather quite big. The heavens for the four heavenly kings is a little bit smaller, therefore it just takes one day. For the Treasury we're going to take a day and a half. Yesterday, we've already covered on the structures and architectures on the inside of the city. Today, we're going to look at the conditions of the roads. What are the roads like inside the city? The roads are of 2,500 yojanas. Width measures 12. It is gentle and soft and comfortable. The ponds, treasures, trees, and lotuses are the beautiful decorations. Over here, it shows that the roads of the Shudashana city is unlike the roads of ours. It is rather very wide and very long. Over here, it says that the road is as long as 2,500 yojanas, and the width is 12 yojanas. It could be the width, or it could be the lengthways, because it's very difficult for us to imagine the width as 12 yojanas. But it could be, because many things in the celestial realm are very difficult for us to fathom. So here it says that the width is 12 yojanas. And then the whole city is very well adorned, really beautiful. There are also sandalwood perfumes that's scattered everywhere, sprayed everywhere, and then on the two sides of the roads, there are the adornments of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, and rubies, and the crystal-made water ponds. Inside the water ponds, there are pure and clear nectars. Inside it, there are different colored lotuses to decorate it. Also, within those ponds, there are the different birds. Around the sides of the ponds, there are the wish-fulfilling trees, and on the wish-fulfilling tree, they have various fruits. Also, wonderful, beautiful clothing, and around it, many celestial birds would fly by and they would sing melodious songs. So the whole world just looks like Sukhavati, the pure world. According to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, it says that the city of Treasury heaven has a ground that's flat as one's palm. At 6 times throughout the day, there would naturally descend the rain of flowers. The description is very similar to the description of the pure world Sukhavati. So we've already covered on the description of the roads in the city. Now let's look at the wall that's circling around the city. It says that on the outside of the city, there are 7 treasures that circles around the city. In between, there are 7 trench lakes where the swans decorate it. The celestial beings would have various kinds of enjoyments sitting on their treasure-made boats. So this city is circled by 7 layers of walls, and the walls are made of 7 types of treasures. And then within it, there are trenches with water in it, which is kind of like rivers. Within those trenches, then there are swans and other kinds of birds and other kinds of animals enjoying themselves. At that time, the celestial beings of the Treasury heaven, they would also have a good time on their treasured boats. They would have all kinds of entertainments there. I remember in Cambridge University, there's a bridge and a river because a very famous Chinese poet who made a very well-known poetry there. Therefore, many Asians really enjoy to stay there. So when I went there, I saw many people rowing boats, singing, and doing all kinds of things, and enjoy the evening scenery over there. The celestial beings, they must often go to those rivers, those transient rivers, and enjoy the ever-roaring river, as well as sitting in the boats that's made of various treasures. So lots of devas and devis, they would enjoy great entertainments on those boats. This part talks about the environment around the Shuddhashana city. And then let's look at the boundaries, how big it is. On the pinnacle of Mount Sumeru, there are 4 borders. And then at each corner, there are 4 high buildings. Each of the high building, their height is about 4.5 yojanas, and the sides of the buildings is 125 yojanas, so the circumference is 500 yojanas. There lives Vajrapani. There are the celestial beings who share the same disposition, which is yakshas. They all would also abide over there. So Vajrapani Bodhisattva also comes from Treasury's heaven. You can say that he lives there. The Vajrapani Bodhisattva, he has the disposition of yakshas, and there are the other celestial beings who has the disposition of yakshas. They also abide over there in the Treasury's heaven, that is. According to Mahavibhasha Shastra, it says that there are the yakshas whose name is Vajrapani, abide in the Treasury's to protect all celestials. Previously, we said that there are the 4 buildings, tall buildings, and in the middle of the 4 tall buildings, that is to say that connecting the 4 buildings, the 4 buildings do not just occupy one corner, occupy each corner in solitude. Rather, they are connected by a jewel-made wall. It is surrounded by the jewel-made walls. Now we've already covered on the surroundings of the city, Shuddhashana, and the palace of all victorious. Now to continue, we're going to talk about the gardens. There are the gardens or the groves, the outer groves and the inner groves. In the brief explanation of the groves, it says that there are 4 different groves of the celestial realm. They distant from the Shuddhashana city for 20 yojanas. That is to say that in the 4 directions of the Shuddhashana city, distancing 20 yojanas, there are 4 different groves. And in the later part, we're going to look at the descriptions of the 4 groves. From this description, we can see that the city is located in the center and then surrounded by the 4 groves in the 4 directions. And the distance between the city to the grove is 20 yojanas. When we think of this city, we can envision this circle inside a circle inside a circle, and the center of this circle, the center of it is the city Shuddhashana, and then on the outer skirt of the Shuddhashana city is the groves, and then on the outside of that, encircling that groves, are the wonderful fields that we'll study later. If one were to paint it, this is the way to paint the Treasury's heaven. That's the city planning of the Treasury's heaven. When we study Longchenpa's teachings, also the Agana Sutra and Abhidharma, except that Agana Sutra talks a little bit different about the different groves and the direction of the different groves. Also, the Agana Sutra has more extensive explanation of even the various names that's associated with the different groves. Now let's look at the extensive explanation over here. The first one. Now let's look at the first one. It is the numerous chariot grove located in the east. This particular name is translated differently according to, for example, Mahavibhasha Shastra and Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, where they all mean many chariots grove or the collection of chariots grove. In terms of the description, it says that it is ornamented by the jeweled ponds and trees, as well as wonderful clothings. The devas and devis have great enjoyments here. What it means is that previously we've studied that around the Shuddashana city there are 4 groves located in the 4 directions. And the first one that's located in the east is called the various chariot grove. Why is that named as various chariot grove? It is because it has many chariots. Whomsoever wants to go on a tour and vacation, they can take all kinds of chariots over there. And there are many ponds, water ponds, as well as all kinds of jewel-adorned ladders and all kinds of silver, gold, crystal, and lapis lazuli, all kinds of jewel-made architectures and pure water, as well as beautiful celestial clothing, flowers and fruits and colors. But other than those adornments, the best things that they have over there in those groves are the chariots. The great numbers of beautiful celestial devis would happily take those chariots, ride those chariots. Since it is the various chariot, or numerous chariot grove, there are various chariots in that grove. Over there, people taking tours, and the devis and devas. Those beautiful celestial women would drive those cars. So those beautiful celestial women are the drivers driving those chariots. But maybe if some women were to visit over there, they would have those handsome celestial men drive those cars. According to Agana Sutra, it says that some of the celestial beings live in Triyastrimsha's heaven. They had never been to that numerous chariot grove. Some of them may have heard of it, some of them may have seen it but never entered. Some of them may have seen it and then also entered there. Why is that? It is because the celestial beings also have various merits. I think it's similar to our world too. There are people with lots of merits and lots of wealth. They can travel to many of those luxurious tourist places. It could be groves, gardens, and the places that require lots of wealth to support. So there are people who have wealth, they can go to those places, but there are people maybe because they don't have enough wealth to purchase the entrance ticket or don't have enough money to travel to those places. They probably have heard of those names but never been there. There are people who have heard of it. There are people who have never even heard of it and don't even mention going there. That is the various amount of merits that's accumulated by everyone. According to Agana Sutra, it says that the celestial beings, there are beings who had never been there nor have heard of this numerous chariot grove. Now, the second grove is called the coarse and savage grove. It says that located in the south, there is a coarse and savage grove. It is located about 20 yojanas to the south, and over there, all the ponds and flowers, they all have a sense of coarseness or aggressiveness to them. They don't look very gentle, they don't look very pleasant, rather, there's a sense of coarseness and unpleasantness to them. Whenever people look at them or being there, they don't feel quite happy. When the celestial beings go to this grove, especially, they would visit this grove before war. And once they visit there, they would generate aggression. As you know from Abhidharma, because the form realm, they don't usually have lots of aggression, but desire realm, we have quite a bit of aggression, especially for human beings. We have more aggression than the other beings. The celestial beings, however, their mind stream is rather quiet and very peaceful. Just like within the human beings, there are people who barely get angry, or even if they get a bit angry, you can't really tell. But the celestial beings, when they need to fight with the Asuras, they would have to generate some aggression or wrathfulness. They have to be stimulated to generate that aggressiveness. Therefore, they would first visit this savage grove. And then all the sounds that they hear from the savage grove are vulgar and unpleasant, and there's lots of quarreling. They would see lots of those aggressive scenes as well. From the trees, there would manifest all kinds of jewel-made armors and sharp wheels, as well as very sharp spears and swords and shields, all kinds of weapons. Usually, when we read these kinds of ancient scriptures, we would see all kinds of implements they would use, that is, by the protectors. There are various kinds of symbols and implements that the protectors would hold. But those are usually very traditional weapons. When we talk about the cold weapons, we refer to the spears and swords and knives. And then nowadays there are the hot weapons as well, such as missiles, bombs, hydrogen bombs, and the chemical weapons, biochemical weapons, even those could create detrimental results. People nowadays would think that all the new weapons, the hot weapons, are quite malicious, and they could create detrimental results. But when it comes to the celestial beings and the protectors, their swords and knives are not necessarily used in the same way as the cold weapons. Rather, whenever they direct those weapons to the enemy would be destroyed. It includes various kinds of wrathful practices as well. Maybe it's similar to the missiles that we talk about nowadays, and there are the GPS GPS system attached to it. As long as you direct the bombs or missiles to the enemy, then it will go that way. So the weapons that's held in the hands, in the celestial beings' hands, as well as the protector's hands, it works in kinds of similar way. As long as you direct it, then the weapons or the force of them would be directed. Nowadays, human beings had made lots of weapons that could threaten our own existence. We pushed ourselves to this verge of death. Each different countries would have enormous weapon expenses to make all kinds of weaponry, such as nuclear weapons and so on. In the past, there was a great Lama whose name is Lama Padma. In his teachings, he talked a great deal of new weapons that people never heard of at that time. Not only he gave lots of detailed descriptions of the new weapons that would be made during the Dark Age, he also talked about the kind of people who make the weaponries, as well as using those new weaponries, would fall into the hell realm. They would be reborn in hell realm. The hell realm that is different than the 18 layers of hell realms that we usually talk about. Rather, it is in a specific and a very special hell realm that is fused with fear and diffused with all kinds of horrific scenes. It is because those people would create such horrific karma. This particular Lama Padma, he lived about 100 years ago. Our weapons may look really horrendous in our human realm, but in the celestial realm, because they have miraculous powers, because they have merits, therefore their power of creating weapons far surpass that of our humans. They have various other methods to do it. Especially whenever they think of it, they can obtain those kinds of weapons. This coarse and savage grove is kind of equivalent to the military department, where it trains the military to protect the country. So when the celestial beings were about to wage war or fight against the Asuras, they would be trained in the coarse and savage grove. The whole living situation and the feelings in that coarse and savage grove is completely different than the usual way of the celestial beings, where they would enjoy all kinds of lifestyle. Whenever they think of any kinds of weapons, they would appear from the wish-fulfilling tree. So that is the coarse and savage grove. And then the third one is the various forest grove in the west. In terms of the second one, which is the coarse and savage grove, there are different names attached to it too. According to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, it says that it is the coarse and cruel grove. According to Mahavaibhasha Shastra, though the writing is a bit different, but it also means the coarse and cruel or vulgar grove. So let's look at the third one, which is located in the west. It's called the various forest grove. Over here, all kinds of provisions would naturally manifest. All kinds of things that, as long as all the celestial beings would need. So over there are wish-fulfilling trees, flowers, and the celestial women. Maybe both the devas and devis. In this particular grove, it is similar to that of a variety store or department store. You can get whatever you need over there. If you want some clothing, you can get clothing. If you want flowers, you can get flowers. If you want celestial women, they will also appear over there. There are all kinds of enjoyments and pleasure that's available in this variety, this various forest grove. The particular characteristic to this grove is that as long as you think of it, things would manifest, they would appear. It's a variety of things. The sentient beings, we can make this observation. As sentient beings, we have a variety of needs and wants. So whatever is needed and wanted over there, all kinds of things would naturally manifest in this various forest grove. According to the Bodhicharya Bhumi Shastra, it says that it is called the variety grove. Now let's look at the fourth one, which is called joyous forest grove. Yogacarya Bhumi Shastra says that it is a joyous grove. It is about 20 yujanas, again from the other groves. It says that located in the north, the joyous forest grove has many celestial beings over there. Also, it has the 1,000 Buddha's trees of the good kalpas. Therefore, their enjoyments and pleasure would ever increase. This is particularly a very pleasant grove. Various celestial devas and devis, they would have their enjoyments and pleasure over there. And even what's more special is that in this grove, there is a resting tree for the 1,000 Buddhas in the good aeon. It is a golden tree, a tree that illuminates light, and not all the celestial beings can see it. Rather, only the beings such as Indra, that has a great amount of merit, could see it. The other celestial beings, they would be able to see their past lives at the place of this particular tree. Also, it is a place to see whether there are good or bad omens for the war. The omen can be displayed very clearly, just as someone looking directly from the mirror. The past and future lives can be also displayed over there. That is why it's called the joyous grove. Many celestial beings feel a great sense of pleasure when they come to this grove. In fact, not just us, the celestial beings also are not quite clear about their future. And they would go to this particular place to see about their future too. And they can see clearly. When I was young, I would pay pilgrimage to Tungu holy mountain, the sacred mountain. At the sacred mountain, there is one small spring. In that spring, there's a little pond over there, and then people could see various things over there in that reflection. I remember that there was once people were looking into that looking into that spring, and there was this one person. All of a sudden, he started crying because he said he saw something really terrifying. Something looks like a snake, but within it, everyone else just saw a small fish. But nowadays, I think people don't usually look into that spring anymore. Last time I went there, I only saw some katas were offered at that spring. But of course, when we go there and take a look into those places, maybe we won't be able to see anything at all. I heard that there was a Khenpo whose name is Khenpo Chukdo, and once he visited Lama Achok with a number of other Khenpos. And Lama Acho at that time, after taking off his shirt and asking them, "Do you see anything?" After Lama Acho asked a few times by saying that, "Don't you see the mandala of the Tathagatas, of the Samadhabhadra?" Lama Chodo said that, "No, I can't see anything." And then Lama Acho said, "Well, you have lots of negative karma, that is why you can't see it." After they came out from the room of Lama Acho, many other Khenpo said, "Oh, you should have said that you did see it, otherwise it is it's not auspicious." But the Khenpo said that, "But I can't see it. If I can't see it, I shouldn't lie about it." So he didn't lie, though that Lama Acho said that he has lots of negative karma. That's why he couldn't see it. People nowadays pay a great deal of attention to predictions and prophets, including some of the Buddhists. People would go on to find the others who can do divination, who can do predictions. I myself, my personal opinion is that I'm not very supportive of that. I don't think it's necessary to go find someone who can do divination or predictions or the mirror divinations just because some small obstacles. It is not necessary. If one were to keep seeking for all kinds of predictions, it means that one does not have faith to one's own life and practice. I think those are the things that you really should not hold on to so much, because whatever happens in the future, let it be a collective future for us or for oneself or individuals. We should not ask the others to make predictions, because in this way, people with wisdom, they would be able to recognize, oh, this person have too much blind faith. This person definitely doesn't this person definitely has not developed genuine faith or genuine spirituality yet. This person has not studied the teachings of Buddhism. They will be able to see it right away. It is because those kind of people would worry about this and worry about that, but not trusting the causes and fruitions of the three times. Over here in the celestial realm, in this joyous grove, not sure why people are so joyous. On one hand, it could be because there's the tree of resting for all the Buddhas. On the other, it is probably because people could see their past and future. They could clearly see those situations. Maybe that's part of the reason. The Buddha went to Trishrimsha's heaven and gave lots of teachings, including the Kshitigarbha Sutra. Not sure if those teachings were given at the Dome of Excellent Dharma. The Buddha also lived there for 3 months. In terms of residency, the thousands of Buddhas of a good aeon all lived over there. But the Buddha specifically stayed there for 3 months. Probably not during the time when the celestial beings were having a war with the Asuras, because that's during the time where the celestial beings were having lots of aggression. Other than the time that the celestial beings are having a war and aggression, usually they would also be quite busy. If you remember the story of Jiva, since he practiced lots of virtuous deeds and healed the Buddha and Buddha's disciples many illness, and later took refuge from Madhgalayana. So after death, Jiva took rebirth to the Trishrimshas heaven, and Madhgalayana, being the teacher of Jiva, visited there. But Jiva only sat in a celestial chariot and waved to his teacher, the Madhgalayana. Though as an arhat, Madhgalayana didn't have any aggression or any sense of upset. However, he did ask Jiva, why don't you come to say hi to me, and why don't you then at least pay reverence to me, since I was your teacher, and give you the refuge vow when you were in human realm. But Jiva said, well, I've already tried my best. I've already waved one hand to you. Being a celestial being, it's actually quite busy, because we're very busy having a good time, and we don't have any time to do anything else, even after seeing my teachers here. So I've already tried my best by waving to you. They actually, at that time, they also met at the Joyous Grove. This is similar to lots of the beings in our realm too. In the human realm, many people are busy with their own things. Jiva probably was busy to have all kinds of enjoyments every place, but other than that, they don't really have much other things to do. But for human beings, everyone's busy, but not necessarily doing the meaningful things. I think that also has something to do with our merit. The meritorious ones, they would spend their time to engage in meaningful things, and they can do many meaningful things at the same time. But for people without much merit, they're not quite efficient with their time, and they don't have much efficiency in engaging in meritorious things, in meritorious activities. So I think it is just like using time is just like using wealth or accumulating wealth. It is very much related to how much merits we have. Look at Jiva. He accumulated a great merit in the human realm and cured various kinds of illness and did lots of meritorious things. But after he took rebirth in celestial realm, the abundant enjoyment made him not having any time to pay respect to his teacher. I remember that I had also a teacher from the normal school. He said that one of his students that he taught became the secretary of the county, and then that student doesn't have time to greet him anymore. And he was very unhappy about it. So I think in human realm, we can also relate to that. Now we've already covered the fourth grove. Let's look at the surroundings of all the four groves. What's the environment? It says that the length is about 250 yojanas. There are the beautiful golden walls circling it. That's about 1 yojana in width. And there are the jewel and treasure-adorned walls, which adorns this area too. The four groves, their length are about, their circumference is about 250 yojanas, same as their length and width are 250 yojanas. It is in the shape of a square. I think the celestial realm, especially the Trishrimshas heaven, the city planning are mostly in the shape of squares. Therefore, the whole circumference is about 1,000 yojanas. The four groves, they're beautifully adorned, and everyone would feel really happy and generate a sense of pleasure when they look at it. The walls of the grove are made of pure gold, and then adorned with gold, silver, and various kinds of treasures too. The ground are made of gold glitters, gold sand, and there are various kinds of waterfalls
有时候像我们这个藏地的一些佛堂里面啊，就是经堂里面的话呢，有各种各样的。
It is adorned with 101 types of decorations. Sometimes I look at the shrine hall of the Tibetan tradition. There are all kinds of things to adorn it. Sometimes, for a period of time, in the past, I felt that it's probably too much adornment. And maybe the simplistic version of the European or the American decoration would be better. Maybe they're more elegant. And that is why the Avatamsaka shrine hall that we have are more decorated into the similar color, into a monochromatic color. They're not as elaborate as the other Tibetan traditional decorations. But then let's look at the celestial realm. Let it be the four heavenly kings' palace or the Trishrimcha's heaven. There's various kinds of colors. When you think about it, the variety of colors and hues shows the merits of the celestial beings far surpass that of the human beings. Therefore, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the various colors, I think they're really a sign of merit. When we were talking about the decoration and the amending of our monastery, we were talking about the design of the pillars. We were talking about, should we choose a traditional Tibetan design or should we go for more of a modern design? Many Khenpos thought it would be better to go for the modern design. That would be more elegant. After discussion, because most of the people over there in our meeting voted for the modern, simplistic, elegant design. Therefore, we didn't use the very colorful traditional design in the monastery. But now, after looking at the Trishrimcha's heaven and the description of it, maybe it's better to go for the traditional, because at the places where there are lots of merit, there are a variety of ornaments. In some countries nowadays, to have the minimalistic design is very popular nowadays. But it could be a manifestation of people's merit. In Trishrimcha's heaven, the roads or the ground is rather soft and gentle. They're not very hard and really difficult to walk on and would pain our foot like the ones that we have over here. Rather, it is very easy to walk on, very gentle and soft, just like the Pure Land of Sukhavati. Also, there are all kinds of flowers, such as the mantura, the lotus, and all of those flowers would submerge one's knees. There are all the scattered kinds of flowers everywhere, even around the ponds and on the grounds, and on the flowers that there are the bees that's waltzing around. Of course, over here it says that the waltzing around of the bees, these are very poetic language. Just as whenever we read those worldly writings to describe the beautiful and the pleasant environment, we would talk about the waltz of butterfly, the hymns of bees, the twittering of birds and fragrant flowers. So we would use all those kinds of poetic language to describe a certain type of environment. In the midst of it, there are all kinds of flowers and bushes and the roads and the gold glitters and sandalwood, flowers and fruits. They're aligned, but also really beautifully arranged. Maybe similar to how whenever we enter into an area that's full of mansions or going to a very developed large city, we can probably relate to the description with our experience of a wonderful cities or wonderful environments that we see in the human realm. Now we've already finished talking about the inner groves. Let's look at the outer grove. The inner grove can be considered as part of the city planning in the second ring to the city center. They're about 20 yujanas away from the Shotoshana city, and on the four corners there are the four groves. The four groves are the second ring. Each groves have their different functions, so we've already covered that. Let's look at the outer grove. The outer grove are similar to the third ring of the city planning. To better understand it, I think to think of it in parallel to the city planning, I think it's easier. And then the verse goes, such beautifully adorned groves, there are 20 yujanas apart from each. The four beautifully adorned bases are as follows: the various chariots, the savage and horse, as well as the various and the joyous. There are the jewels and treasures that adorns the trees and lakes. Now on the outside of the four groves, parting from each for 20 yujanas, there are the four beautiful bases. According to some other commentaries and teachings, it says that these four are also groves. For example, according to Abhidharma Mahavibhasha Shastra, it says that on the four sides of the four groves, there are the four beautiful bases. The first one is the various chariot. The second one is various bases, or the basis of variety. And then the coarse and savage, also the joyous. In the Chinese language, there are different translations. The roads and all the infrastructure and the environment are almost the same to the previous four groves, except that in the groves, of the outer area or the four bases, there are places for one to rest and to abide. For example, there are roads where you could enjoy the riding of the horses and elephants and chariots, and of course those are free. At least it wouldn't be that expensive. The taxi would be the taxi of elephants and horses, and driven by celestial women. However, and whichever it could be, is based on the celestial beings' wishes. Whenever we talk about the Treasury heaven, we should know that there are four groves in the second ring of the city planning, and then on the outside of it, on the third ring, there are then another four groves or four bases. Let's look at the trees in the description. How is the wish-fulfilling tree like for the celestial beings? The trees located in the northeast of the supreme city is the great fragrant tree that takes the height about 100 yujanas. The root enters into four directions and spreads over 50 yujanas. It is of great prosperous. The top of the tree spreads like an umbrella for 50 yujanas. This great fragrant tree of Treasury heaven is also the wish-fulfilling tree, and is located at the direction of northeast. That's where the celestial beings usually would gather around. There are various Chinese translation of this particular name for the great fragrant tree. For example, the tree that is perfectly born. There's another sutra. The sutra's name is the Sutra of the tree that's grown in the grove, taught by the Buddha. And in this sutra, which is really short, it talks about the sprouting of the tree and then the rooting of the tree, the branching and growing part of the tree, as well as blossoming part of the tree and the fruition part of the tree, how each of the celestial beings would be joyous and then increasingly joyous. This particular tree gives an example how the Shravakas would start to generate faith to the Dharma, start to generate the faith to the renunciation path, and generate a renunciation to the path of practice, and then generate to the faith to the fruition. So the increment of joyous mind of the progression of practice. So that's the content of this particular short sutra. Whenever you have time, I think you could read into it. This particular tree that's talked about here is called the great fragrant tree that takes the height about 100 yojanas, and the roots of the tree grows for 5 yojanas into the Mount Sumeru and then extend into 4 directions. The branch and the top of the tree are so prosperous that covers over 50 yojanas, just like an umbrella. In the southern part of China, such as Yunnan and Hainan provinces, sometimes you can see those large trees. And whenever you see them, you would feel how wondrous it could be, the kind of similar tree to the tree of Shrimsha's heaven, at least in terms of the shapes. And on the peak of Mount Sumeru, it grows. The roots grows into the Mount Sumeru for 5 yojanas. Lives below it are the Asuras, and above it are the celestial beings. However, this particular tree is not the same tree that the Asuras fight over with the celestial beings. The reason is that the Mount Sumeru takes the height of 80,000 yojanas, and this tree grows on the peak of it. Later, we will talk about the tree of the Asuras that grows in the Asuras place and then reaches all the way to the celestial beings. How does this tree look like? This tree radiates light that illuminates all directions. The fragrance would exuberate to hundreds of yojanas. Even in the tooth of the wind, it would still exuberate for 50 yojanas. The light that it radiates is about 80 yojanas. According to some other books, maybe the Agana Sutra, it says 80 yojanas, but it's not much of a difference. The branches are quite prosperous. And the fragrance of the tree, whenever there are wind blowing it, it could spread to 100 yojanas. When it is the reverse wind or against of the wind, or at a very neutral position, then the fragrance would spread over 50 yojanas. So in the teeth of the wind, it would be 50 yojanas. Underneath this tree, this is really interesting. There's a large rock underneath this tree, and this tree's name is called Armo Rock. In Wutang area, there is a large rock that's also called Armo Rock. Usually it is said that the color is black, but this Armo Rock over here in Trishrimsha's heaven, according to Agana Sutra, this particular rock is used to be a residing place of the previous Tathagatas. Therefore, it is a pilgrimage site for the celestial beings, because many of the previous bodhisattvas and brahmas and the Shramanas, they all came to make prostrations and make offering to this particular place, since this used to be a residing place of the Tathagata. It is a very important pilgrimage site, you can say. According to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, it says that this is the rock also called the wish-fulfilling rock. According to it, it says that the color is yellow and white. But over here in the wish-fulfilling treasury, it says that this is pure white. According to Agana Sutra, though, it says that this rock is made of celestial gold. People would wonder, well, why would you say that the celestial being's gold is of this color, but not the golden yellow color that we think of? Well, just think about people whenever they use the fragrance. There are lots of people who wear perfume nowadays, and then they would enter into a small space such as the elevator. And then maybe the kind of fragrance that is really pleasant to smell for that person is not necessarily for other people who follows him and then enters into the elevator. Therefore, we should not fathom the celestial realm with the standard and the reference of human beings, especially when it comes to the fragrance that could spread over hundreds of yojanas from this great fragrant tree. For us, it's very difficult to fathom, because it's very difficult to have any kind of fragrance that would spread even for 1 kilometer, don't even mention about 100 yojanas. But we should not use our measurement and our reference point. And then this Armo rock, the length and width is 50 yojanas. It is the Dharma throne for the celestial beings. Indra has lots of Dharma thrones everywhere, and the celestial beings really enjoy gathering around this rock, especially during the summer. Even if there are lots of celestial beings gathered over there, they wouldn't feel this rock is very narrow or small. And if there were just a few celestial beings gathering around the rock, they wouldn't feel the rock is way too spacious. It is a very special rock, just like the cool and pure rock that Ponsu Rinpoche made a visit to. It is it's a very special and unique manifestation over there. The Devas and Devis, they have all kinds of enjoyments. The nectar and trees and chariots, whatever, clothing and drinks and food and architectures, high-risers and the cinema, whatever we think is the best place to have enjoyments, they have it there. The Armo rock we talked about. This is quite interesting. Whenever we sit at as Tibetans, whenever we sit around beautiful metal, we would think that is this on a place of armor rock? But we shouldn't think of armor rock as the ordinary rocks that we have, because if we were to sit on ordinary rocks in the human realm, we probably feel that it's going to make us to have arthritis, and it's going to be very hard and cold. But it's not that kind of rock. Rather, it's a large platform that has all kinds of wonderful qualities. Now let's look at this Sudashana city.
它应该是3间城，西南方呢就是大概有3.5 有悬处呢，就是
about 3.5 yojanas from the Sudashana city to its southeast direction. There is the Sudashana dome, the dome of excellent Dharma. It takes the shape of a circle, and the circumference is about 300. The circumference is about 900. If you remember the story from Journey to the West, when the monk Xuanzang went to a certain place, the king said that they have this ladder that's made from that was made in the Treasury heaven, that was used by the Buddha when he descended from heaven to human realm again after giving teachings in the Treasury heaven. But later, that ladder was destroyed. Now, then they built another monastery and placed a 70 feet ladder over there. It is said that there is indeed a monastery that has a ladder nowadays, but not so sure where exactly it is. The Dome of Excellent Dharma. There are a number of great masters visited there in the past. For example, during Tang Dynasty, according to the extensive record of Taiping, it says that there's a master whose name is Hongfang. He was a great master. There are lots of stories about his conversation with the Yama, but also he had given Dharma teaching to the Indra too. He was once giving the Dharma teaching in a monastery. At that time, the Indra invited lots of yakshas and celestial beings to invite Master Hongfang to Trishrimsha's heaven, and then he saw the Dome of Excellent Dharma. And then the Indra asked him to chant the mantra of Amitabha, of Maitreya. After he chanted the mantra, he not only could see all the kinds of sceneries in the Trishrimsha's heaven, he could even see the celestial beings having food, having meal. I couldn't remember the story too clearly, but that's the gist of it. Later, the Indra asked him to give the teaching of the Parinirvana Sutra, and the Dharma teacher said, "Oh, sure, that's not a problem. But because I am still taking care of so many ill ones in the human realm, I don't know what I could do to help them at that time." So the Indra then
然后大师呢就是给他就是讲了一点点涅槃经，之后呢就是他这个
said that if you really have to go, could you please just give us a little bit of teaching on the Parinirvana Sutra, and then we'll send you back, which they did.
就是那个弘法大师呢，已经就是示
Though
众了27
for
天。
Master Hongfang, he only left for a very short period of time. The disciples perceived that he had already gone missing for 27 days. And then Master Hongfang started to draw out different pictures that depict the Trishrimsha's heaven, and started to write down the story.
就是武则天那里去了，然后武则天呢，后来又请他这个。
After people hearing about his experience, they started to spread rumors until that rumor reached to the empress of that time, Empress Wu Zetian, and then the empress invited Master Hongfang to the royal palace and discovered that he indeed was a great master.
方便的时候，大家也是可以看一看，就是这个里面还是有些事情是真的。
And then started to request some teachings from him. So this is a story of Master Hongfang from Tang Dynasty, and his story of visiting the Trishrimsha's heaven. Whenever you have time, I think you should read into it. It's quite unfathomable. In terms of celestial beings and Indras, they pay great importance to the Parinirvana Sutra. So we ourselves should also attach great importance to sutras. Though that the celestial beings wanted to request the master to give teaching on the Parinirvana Sutra, the master Hongfang didn't have enough time to give them the whole teaching, and we can contemplate on the important lesson from this story. Now let's look at the next verse. It says that in the center, this jewel-adorned building glitters golden light. It is slightly elevated from the ground. This is the place for very important things to be discussed. So this dome of excellent Dharma located in the center of the celestial realm, it is a glittering and radiating building, which elevated a little bit from the ground. It is elevated as if one single hair could lift it up, but it is not perceivable by mundane beings. Such kind of elevation is not perceivable by mundane beings, just as when we were studying the precept teachings, the Shila teachings, it says that during the walk of the Buddha, the mundane beings cannot perceive that he's walking on the ground or slightly elevated from the ground. It is not touching the ground. And the clothing of the Buddha, in fact, does not truly touch his body. It still keeps a little distance. Now let's look at the function of this dome of excellent Dharma. I think the celestial beings don't really care about economic development or politics and things like such. Mainly, they would care about whether the beings living over there, the celestial beings and the beings of Jambudvipa would observe the precepts and would pay filial piety to their parents, and if they're practicing virtuous deeds. If not, then all of these would be reported to the Indra. If the beings are practicing virtuous deeds, Indra would be joyous, and then the various kinds of virtuous and auspicious conditions would be bestowed. For example, they would rain down the auspicious rain. But if the sentient beings are practicing the vice deeds, then the Indra and the celestial beings would be extremely displeased. Then various kinds of disaster would happen in the human realm too. So it is not like a selfish meeting room or meeting hall. It is rather a place where the four heavenly kings and the yakshas and the various kinds of spirits would be sent to the Trishrimsha's heaven to uphold justice and abolish the fallacious deeds, it is something that the celestial beings would pay great attention to. So let's stop here for today. This is on the part of the celestial realm that rely on ground. Next class we will talk about that rely on space.